Hi there, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're connecting from. Today's live is going to be talking about retail and careers in retail. Whether it was a thought, career plan, or accidental, most of us, I believe, had a small retail experience. I had my share of the retail experience when I was 16 or 17 and went behind my mother's back to apply for a part-time job in a fashion store because it was like the dream come true to work in fashion retail, right? And there are many different aspects of retail, whether the human connection aspect, whether the science of retail, whether the management of retail, and every position in retail, I believe, as Ron says and will be telling us in a few, should be celebrated. I'm going to be joining in with Ron to talk about, first of all, his book, Retail Pride, but we're going to be also looking at his take on retail and careers in retail and the importance of service in the fashion retail industry or any other retail industry. So let me just get in touch with Ron and we will kick conversation. So Ron is joining from New York with do I see Ron? Hi
There you
Ron.
are. Good morning. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good
How are
morning.
you?
I'm great. I'm great. It's a little rainy New York City morning,
Well,
but
here it's not like rainy, it's like the storm coming in suddenly and we do not feel like June, but we're
oh,
trying to I'm wearing also like a pink color to be assorted with the book.
I appreciate that. I actually was going to wear pink and then I changed to black because of the weather.
It's okay. Ron, thank you so much for joining me today, and it's a pleasure to meet you. And I'm so happy we're getting in touch via Instagram, and I'm
Me
going
too.
to like directly give you the floor to just start talking about the retail, the love for retail, and your accidental career in the
Sure.
retail
Thank you. Thank you for
industry.
inviting me too. This is fun. Very fun way to engage with a global audience as well. So
Thank you.
yes, I have had nearly 4 decades of experience in the industry, and that's very difficult to say. But I just had a birthday, and you kind of reflect on um, kind of your life at that point, and I'm like, wow, I've really been doing this for a long
A
time,
long
and I've
time.
loved every minute of it.
Good.
And I'm a from California, and I grew up in small town Northern California, like Tahoe, and had this dream, kind of working in fashion. I learned how to sew at a young age, and I've always wanted to work in fashion. And so I did study fashion design. My original career plan was in fashion design. And what I discovered, is that I enjoyed it, but the moments that I had working in retail, mostly accidental as kind of part-time sales jobs filling in, were much more engaging. And so I did pivot and I um, landed in a management training program at a department store and said, like, this is really interesting. This is a kind of
Yes.
multi-million dollar business. You learn how to run a department. I started to learn how to lead teams and ultimately joined The Gap as my next um, company to work for, which also was very accidental. It was a Gap Kids business that I knew very little about, selling children's clothes. But then I just discovered this love of selling and leading and inspiring and how to work on a team, how to build culture. And that was the next 30 years of some of, the opportunity and the honor really to lead retail teams for some of the biggest brands, in this country. And
Yes.
that has been a joy every day.
And it seems like every time we're talking about retail, it's the appreciation of every moment, right, in the industry.
Yeah.
However, we always say that retail is very tiring. You know, you have to have a lot of strength into doing this. You have to have the will and the power to get up in the morning, sometimes after, very difficult
So true.
uh, seasonal instances. However, where's the reward in retail other than learning and growing in the industry? How do you see the
Mm.
reward when working in this beautiful industry?
Mhm. I actually think the reward comes in two ways. It's inspiring the team you work with. And by inspiring, I really mean kind of showing up with empathy. I talk in the book about kind of three pillars of retail success that apply to any role in any company. I think they are very human, which is, you show up with empathy. So you learn and you listen and you become more inclusive and you represent a very human behavior of being highly empathetic or can be highly curious, because I think the best rewards come when you are at your most curious.
Yeah,
And that comes from product knowledge, about the brands you work for, maybe the history of the brand that you work for. Um, of course, being highly curious about the customers that you serve every day, and the ability to focus on the goals. So those kind of three pillars of empathy, curiosity, and focus, I think, set up anyone in our industry for success. And the
yeah,
reward comes, I believe, when you demonstrate that empathy with anyone around you, coworker, team, customer, and you've asked great questions and you're focused on the conversation. That reward comes in a very human way. And sometimes the reward comes financially. You can work in commission. Sometimes the reward comes from a nice thank you or a moment of gratitude. But I think it's taking every day the opportunity to say, this was really hard, but I impacted someone's life in a very positive way today. And that
yeah,
is inherently retail.
yes,
It's like you have those opportunities every day to meet strangers and change their life. And that sounds very dramatic and very big, but I believe it's true.
yeah,
And you do that through being empathetic and curious. And I, I mean, the stories I think that we've all heard about, maybe you don't know what's going on in someone's life. They have an interaction with you, and you really change their day.
yes,
Change, and
yes.
those are, you can't replace that. I think that's really powerful in our industry.
Yeah, it's like those little things that are very rewarding and that
Yeah,
build up on I believe stamping your career and the way you look at it. And
right.
Ron, in your book, you've talked about like five pillars in total. Can you elaborate a little bit on the two other pillars?
Of course.
Yeah,
Yeah. So those three, I say no matter your role, no matter the company, we can all show up with empathy, curiosity, and focus. But there are a couple other pillars that I think are specific to leadership, that I speak about. There's always this ability to hire the right people, and that's a huge pillar because, and I use the term like hire the right people, not maybe the people that have the exact CV that you're looking for. I think this is such a human business that I actually love to hire people who I know are right for the role because of their level of engagement, how they interact, how they show curiosity. Their success is entirely built on kind of who they are and how they
mm,
show up every day.
mm,
And
mm,
so
mm.
like that, hiring that right person, and sure, if you're hiring a store director for a high volume location, they need to have a background that is applicable. But the idea of, I want to hire the exact right person who's really going to change the dynamic of this team. They're going to add a language, they're going to add a skill, a personality that's going to change the team. The more effort as a pillar you put into hiring the right team, the more successful you will be. And I
Yeah,
think that applies in certainly in every industry, but I think particularly in ours, that is so human centric. And I think the other piece that's really important is about having a great story to tell,
Mhm.
because the pride, I believe, that shows up is when you can speak about who you are and what you do in an industry that you love, because millions of people love working in retail and they don't talk about it. And I
Yes.
want to be able to say, if you have a great story to tell, you do that because you're proud of what you do. And then you're actually excited to tell other people. And then your story starts to come to life and you don't feel so alone. And you don't feel as if you're the only one having this tough experience and that you have a lot of people around you. And the messages I receive every day are really special of like, thank you for speaking about our industry that we all love, but no one ever says that we love it.
Yes.
I know
Right.
it's really it's so interesting to me.
Yes, yes, true.
Yeah,
However, there's a little bit of dilemma in retail. Whenever it comes to careers in retail, we see that most of the careers that start at the bottom of the industry, meaning
yeah,
that are more related to the day-to-day activities or to the shop floor, etc., are more customer oriented. And then when we move up the ladder, we are more close to managerial numbers people, etc.
yeah,
There's like this common, I don't know if it's a misconception or we acquired this, that people who are working on the floor are less maybe educated or less seriously, taken, and
hmm,
people who are in upper management are the more educated and the more knowledgeable. However, we all know that if there are no people on the floor, there is no retail, right? This is the
right,
heart of retail. However,
yep.
this is the less appreciated and the less serious part of retail. So this is a bit controversial, Ron. What's your take on
Hmm.
that?
So, my take is, I would even use myself as an example. I was that entry level part-time salesperson who didn't have an education, who uh, did it because I really learned to love people and that I demonstrated my skills. And then it's it's working for an organization that can recognize performance. And I think that's an important choice today in our industry is saying, where am I going to get exceptional training, development, a leadership team that recognizes who I am and what I do and can help me grow my career? Because what doesn't happen in our industry is that you would say, well, I have this level of education, therefore I should have this role.
Mhm.
It doesn't work like that. It's like you have to do the work before you are given the opportunities.
Yes.
And so I'd say, be really proud of being that part-time sales associate and do your absolute best every day.
Yeah.
But if the company doesn't recognize that, and raise your hand for extra assignments. Think about where you can show your true skills, how you can grow your own career by asking for what you need, but choose companies that then invest back in you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a really important part of how we think about growing our industry kind of post-COVID is the best retail companies are those that invest in their entire team
Yeah.
and and create development plans, create career growth opportunities, no matter your role, stock, sales, entry level, new to the industry. The way we retain great people in our industry is through training and development.
Mm.
And some companies do this very well, and some companies don't.
Are less invested in that,
Less
right?
invested, and you become, all the jobs become temporary,
Yeah.
and that's not a great way to grow a business. So I think
Right.
you recognize that I love doing this. Now I'm going to do this for a company that's going to help me grow. And those are the choices I made. And I encourage others to do that.
Right. But
Yeah.
again, as opposed to this human-centric aspect of retail, or this human variable that is pretty much important in the retail industry, we have seen that with the advent of the internet and the growth of e-commerce,
Hmm.
people had the tendency to shop online and
Hmm.
maybe split their times between the offline and online industries.
Hmm.
So how are retail jobs changing to meet with the retail format changes as well? And how can we connect with our customers if we don't see them?
Yeah. Great. I love this question because it's kind of the question of 2021 of how do
Yeah.
we re-engage in a human way. So I think there are a couple really important parts of this that really work in our favor. So number one is and we've experienced this maybe in the US, maybe a bit more than Europe because we've been a little ahead of opening a little bit faster. The minute that people came back into stores and had spent months and months only having the ability to shop online, they were so engaged and ready to have an interaction in the store. Ask questions, be in the fitting room, feel beautiful again, try on new clothes, try new technology, all of it. So there's an interest level in brick and mortar retail today that's never been higher.
Mm.
Customers have come back in and said, I missed this so much. I missed you. I want to talk. I want to sit and meet new people. And I see that every day.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a huge side. But on the human tech side, there's great technology that continues to evolve around fit, understanding what your fit is on the website, of taking kind of all the measurements of your product and saying, well, based on your own personal measurements, here's your perfect size. So that becomes more human because I'm just referencing clothing in particular because it's the hardest product category to
To sell
buy. I would
online.
just use
Yeah.
yourself to like buying a dress on a website, for a special event is really difficult. And you buy two sizes and you have to send one back and it looks different in the photographs. So there's great technology that says, here's your size. There's technology around chat functions to say, I'm not near a store or I'm not comfortable going in. Let me engage with them via chat, via video, clienteling solutions. There's a lot of technology that's trying to make websites more human.
Yeah.
And I appreciate all of them very much because, it's not one or the other. Today, we live in a world where you may find a brand you love on Instagram and you start following them. And then that turns into going to their website, through Instagram. And then maybe it's an order on their website, and maybe it's then a visit to brick and mortar, but you actually make the purchase on Instagram. So,
Yeah.
I love the kind of fluidity of it, and we don't even think about channels. This is your brand. This is where all the different touch points of your brand are available, and here's how you can have access to it. And that
Yeah.
that feels also very human in its own way.
But on the other hand, wouldn't this like a multitude of retail channels make it a little bit harder for retailers to control a unified message throughout all of these platforms, whether
Yeah.
social, whether our chatbot, etc. So how can we control like our message, and how can we speak through these same tonalities that
Yeah.
customers would expect from us through the diversity of formats?
That's so that you're exactly right. This becomes the challenge, and I would use my experience, which is a brand that we don't have in Europe, which is called Bonobos. And Bonobos is a men's brand that has a very unique business model that I helped build. That is kind of a showroom model. So you would try on, you would come in as it's a men's business. We'd say, great, like, how do you like your clothes to fit? We would have each of the fits in every size and then one of every color. So, but you didn't take home anything. You ordered everything on the website. So you have a high touch level of experience in the store, and then you ordered the product through the website. But the voice of the brand then would come through the website through training I would do with them. So the same training I would do when I open a new store, I would do with the e-commerce team and the chat team and the email team, and so that we all had a unified voice, but it was
Yeah.
my voice. And then I would say, well, great, if he's shopping for a suit for a wedding in the Hamptons in summer, this is what you would say. And then if he's chatting online, you would reference the same expectation as you would in a store. Now,
Yes.
this was a small brand, so it's easier, and I could control all the points. And the bigger the brand, the harder this becomes. I recognize that. But the more investment in, again, I'll reference training, then that every store in the world is trained similarly. Hopefully, they say similar things. The same training applies to anyone working in e-commerce or on social media, that there's a level of similarity in language, to your point. But it can certainly be a challenge the bigger it gets.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
yes, again, I wanted to point out the importance of training and investing in that, and constantly repeating the message, living the
Right.
brand, and the persona that we're trying to represent through whatever a channel and
Right.
whomever is managing that. It's beautiful. So
Yeah.
again, with this idea of physical distancing and retail practices, so we're saying that managers should be paying today more attention, right? Because we don't want
Hmm.
that distance to also distance us brands from our customers.
Right.
Um, as opposed to previous practices, what happened post-COVID? Is it a new understanding of managing brands? Are we doing more effort into engaging today with customers? And if so, what are brands doing to engage further
Hmm.
and fight this distance that brands had with customers?
Yeah. I actually think it's the best opportunity managers have ever had to spend more time on the shop floor, to spend more
Yeah,
time engaging and welcoming back. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you. I'm so glad you came back in. How was your lockdown? Welcome. I have some new members of my team. Like, great store managers, and they just use that. I know different brands use different term. I would just say great store managers are have a level of engagement with customers that walk in, with their team, with the product, with their corporate business partners, that for me, it's one of the most prideful jobs in our industry is the
yeah,
store manager,
yeah,
because the store manager runs a multi-million-dollar business and should be on the floor. If your name was on the front door, where would you spend your time? You would spend all of it on the sales floor, because you'd want to know your customers. You would want to understand what's selling, what's not selling, what's the product feedback. And so I love the opportunity presented to us today to say, let's be on the floor. Let's have the best time today. Let's celebrate our customers, welcome them back. And all that work that needs to happen when all the office work, which of course is part of our business, let's do it when we're closed.
yeah.
Don't spend the day in the office, spend the day on the floor. And I can just speak from, again, many years of experience. The best feedback you get is when someone has met the leaders of the store team and celebrate them. And I remember, even for myself, being able to, when I was I was store manager of an Apple store, and when someone would switch, this was years ago, when you would change from like PC to Mac. I don't know if you
Yeah,
remember, there was this big surge of PC to Mac. So we called them switchers. And so when
yeah,
someone would switch from PC to Mac, I would introduce myself. I'm the general manager of the store. Welcome to Apple. Let me tell you about the services. Welcome. We would all cheer. I'm like, yay, as they would leave. Those customers are there for life.
yeah.
And it's because every time you have the opportunity to engage with new customers, but as a leader, that's our responsibility.
Yeah. But I'm curious also to know your opinion on that idea. At a certain point before COVID, which was a phase that really put most of the retail environment to test, some of the brands who were working well and doing well found themselves like a little bit distant. I know what I'm
Hmm.
doing. Whatever I do, the customer will buy or will abide, right? And all of a
Hmm.
sudden, this changed. So, are most of the managers and most of the brands, and I'm saying even luxury brands,
Hmm.
put to test? And are
Hmm.
they now recognizing the importance of being humble in retail and going back to the customer?
Mm. I would like to say yes. I think time will tell because
Yeah,
what has happened, and I could just reference here in New York City, much of that business done in those big luxury brands that kind of had a stance of maybe not always engaged because you're about kind of selling luxury handbags to tourists. Those tourists aren't here. And so that idea of, well, great, I actually still have a really big sales plan to make, and I want to rebuild my business, that there's a level of service that needs to happen that maybe is higher than it's ever been before, and a level of gratitude and a level of just kind of asking for a new way to do business. So I actually hope that those brands have taken the opportunity to learn how to engage in a new way. Um,
yeah.
I've experienced some things, already that seem different. So I'm actually quite hopeful for
Okay.
this. Yes.
So there's a bright future.
I think there's a bright future. I think you always you take the opportunity to say, reflect on what you've learned and to not all of a sudden when all the traffic comes back and the tourists come back, don't forget what it felt like
When
to
they weren't.
when they weren't and that you had
Yeah.
to work really hard. And I can reference my own business here that is luxury, not European luxury, but luxury price points, that is highly clienteling driven and highly, strong levels of appointment business and levels of engagement and customers that shop often. Those clients that we had that relationship prior were the first ones back when we
Yeah.
reopened, and they're still
Yeah.
back today. So like
Yeah.
those relationships are really important to rebuild. And just because the traffic gets bigger again, don't forget that that was the core of your business. Those customers rebuilt your business when no one was coming in the door. And
Right.
those are the customers that need to be celebrated. And we welcome everyone back into our stores, but those that have been there the whole time that maybe are local, we should be the most gracious with them.
Right. Right. And more attentive to them as
More
well.
attentive, sure.
And again, like going back to the idea of our teams, how can we keep our team happy? How can we create a meaningful work environment? Of course, we're always looking at like those cliches about the retail industry and like people who work in retail are deprived or feel angry or feel, like
Sure.
how can we motivate even with little things, and how managers today are rethinking their management practices to
Mm,
keep their teams motivated, especially
yeah,
at the floor level.
especially at the floor. Yeah, I think had those that had a very human-centric leadership style pre-COVID uh, are those that came back with the most level of empathy and curiosity. Again, kind of that empathy, curiosity, and focus. If you did that well before, you're going to be even better at it today. But if it wasn't something you were doing prior, to say, I want, because it's been the most challenging for that frontline retail employee, that didn't actually they don't today work from home. They will never
Yeah,
work from home.
yeah,
They don't have that option. And so there's a level of appreciation that needs to happen for those of maybe it's financial and how we can reward them. There are brands that are giving now bonuses or increasing hourly rates because you really do treat them like frontline workers. And there are those that maybe can't do it, but can feel very appreciated by their leadership team at all
yeah,
levels, from
yeah,
CEO to people that sit in my role to everyone. There's just saying thank you, saying like, just how are you today? Like are you doing okay? And what can I do to help you? It, Often I find people that you've just engaged and listened, then just have a great day. And because they're being seen and heard and appreciated. And I know that sounds very kind of esoteric and not very technical, but I think you can build that into a tactical practice of every morning we have a great kickoff day. We
Yeah.
celebrate the wins from yesterday. We talk about our opportunities. We celebrate each other. We talk about what we're grateful for from each other. We talk about new best practices to do, and so that's a can be a team effort. Proper touch bases, or say, you know, I should have a scheduled at least once a week or once a month with every member of my team, et cetera. You can build in processes. I say a
Yeah.
lot in the book, how to put it to work. I give you
Yeah.
an idea and here's how to put it to work. Put it to work is have a morning kickoff, do this, do that, do this. But you can have a one-on-one with your manager as a new employee that is either changes your entire perspective of what you do or makes you start to look for another job.
Yeah.
And I think every day, again, you referenced my quote, every day we have the chance to make a difference in someone's life.
Yeah.
And I don't say that lightly. I am entirely committed
You've
to saying
experienced
that you
it as
can.
well.
I've
Yeah.
experienced it my entire career.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but it's so powerful to say, this may feel like I'm a cashier, and this may feel like an entry level role, but I have the opportunity to be my best and to be engaged and to show that difference. And sometimes the checkout process at the end of a sale is the one that customers remember the most. They
Exactly.
remember they remember the end of the sale more than who said hello when they walked in. It's
Exactly.
like every part of the experience, every person in the store is
Is an
valuable and
important.
important. It's
Yeah.
so I believe this so strongly.
Yeah. Ron, I know that I've inverted a little bit this talk, and I wanted to start like with your professional experience more than highlighting the book. But what really touched me in the book, and maybe it's also personal because we all had our like take on retail, is your inspiration from a person who inspired you a
Mm,
lot and whom I think opened your eyes to looking at retail in a different way, right? And
hmm.
embracing your career in retail. So, like, let's just take a little moment to globally talk about the book and reflect on the importance of retail experience before moving to the next
Mm,
part.
sure. So yes, I opened my book with a dedication to my grandfather, who um, grew, kind of built a construction company that started as a very small business of kind of first he built in South Lake Tahoe, where I grew up in the mountains, the first firehouse, the first schools, some custom homes, and kind of built a community that then became a much bigger platform for building grocery stores. And what I loved about how he led, and it's very clear to me even today as I observed him in action, is that he was always engaged with everyone on the team, and that no matter their role, if he was on a construction site as the CEO of the company, he made sure he said hello to every single person uh,
Yeah.
in the building and thanked them and maybe asked them a few questions. And he was very approachable and very engaged and very
And
grateful
human.
and
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
humble.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was, and I traveled with him, as a teenager all over California, observing him in action. And there was a time where I really thought, I wanted to kind of be the next leader of this company, but I had, different plans. Construction was not my
My
goal,
thing.
but my thing. And, but, and he was fine. He's like, that's fine, but you need to, when you decide what you love, here are some things that have worked for me. And so
Yeah.
until, he passed away at the age of 93, still working, went to the gym every day, was still working part-time in a food bank. This was the kind of man he was. volunteering at a food bank and working part-time there, and until the age of 93.
Yeah.
And he was very inspirational to me, and I have definitely learned how to lead, I believe, in a way that is engaging with everyone on the team.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful way to think about our business.
Right. And it's a management perspective also, which might differ from other practices.
Right.
And it's a school, I think it's a
Yeah.
school in retail that we should look at. And today,
Right.
we have also encountered many different types of formats. Uh, of course, the online and offline, but with offline formats like temporary retail formats like pop-up stores, our physical flagship stores, our
Hmm.
other stores, etc. So in terms of service, do we look at the same servicing style, the same client relationship styles in one or the other? Or can we say that due to the diversity of retail formats, we're thinking also of different relationship styles with our customers who might be visiting
Hmm.
those different spots?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there can be very foundational common things that we do. And so a lot of that is about education, because I think great retail doesn't just mean that you purchase something. It means that you learned something along the way. Maybe you engaged with someone that inspired you. You had something that changed, you had an experience that changed your perspective about a brand. That is great retail. It doesn't
Yeah,
mean that you bought something. It doesn't mean that you will ever buy something. But you say, you know what? I didn't know anything about this brand. I walked in and I'm leaving now ready to tell others about this and feeling a little bit smarter about who they are. If that
yeah,
happened, that's great. And so
yeah,
that's why I actually love the pop-up business model that could say, our only expectation here is to gain new clients and to teach people about what it is that we're doing. That maybe it's a pop-up that turns into something more permanent, but that's the best version of retail, is that education and level of engagement.
yeah,
But the same things could apply at a huge luxury business that would say, I want every day, and so I'll reference my time at Saint Laurent. Every day, I wanted to teach someone one maybe nugget of information about the history of Yves Saint Laurent and the power and the influence that that man had for the last 50 years on fashion. And so the more you know, the more you share, and the more engaged
yeah,
that the clients become and the team becomes. That's
right.
it's curiosity again. Like, well, why were certain things done, or certain patterns used, or why was the store designed this way? There's a story behind all of it. But whether it's pop-up or a huge business, that education and teaching is a really big part of building a brand.
Yeah, yeah. And thus understanding that retail functions are not strictly restricted to like making the sale right here, right now. Some of them
Yeah,
look at the return, which is financial, and other look at experiential returns, which
right.
is really important in today's retail currency.
Hmm.
Wow,
Yeah.
such an
It's both.
inspiration. I'm digesting all of this. I'm in love. Such a beautiful industry, and of course, like many things to think of and reflect on at each time. Ron, today, like many brands, could struggle at certain points with their retail, and maybe it's due to management issues or other issues, maybe product related issues. I don't know. But what would be your recommendations for those people or those managers to enhance maybe or rethink before like giving it a last shot before like taking a
Mm.
decision on what's going to happen next?
I would say the most relevant information you can get about what's really happening in your business is to engage with the team and say, let's before we make a decision, let's ask everyone that's involved. What should we do as a company that will ensure that we have the best experience as a team for you, first and foremost? And secondly, what's going to create the best experience for every single customer that walks in the door?
Yeah.
And I start with team intentionally because people that are highly engaged and proud of what they do inherently deliver better service. And because they all they want to do is share their experience with someone else. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I love selling this. I love working for this brand. My leader appreciates me. So I always start with team and people, and then say, right, we're engaged, we're ready, we're excited, we're trained, so let's give that to everyone that walks in the door. So if you do that first, that team will give you all the information you need about what your business strategy should be. They will tell you and say, we need more of this product, we need this kind of inventory, this doesn't work very well, this technology needs to be improved, we need this. And so they'll give you the answers. You just have to
Yeah.
ask
And
everyone
listen.
around you and listen and then act. Because
And act, yeah.
what maybe we have a missed opportunity in senior leaders is maybe we listen, but we don't actually do anything.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
when you can say, thank you so much for giving me your feedback, I'm going to go back and I'm going to follow up. And in a week, I'm going to send you an answer to your question.
Right.
And
And
people
which
actually don't expect that you're going to do it.
exactly, which
They
says
don't.
a lot about your engagement with your team members again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we can all do that. We can all be better about listening and acting. If you're in a senior leadership role, do something with that feedback. And
Yeah.
I on the board of Goodwill, I'm here in New York and New Jersey, and I did a big store visit a couple of weeks ago and had the CEO and all of their whole team, and as a board member, we do get to make some decisions of how the brand operates. So we were in a store in New Jersey, all these people with this incredible store manager at a store, and I said, you have every decision maker in the company here today. Literally the entire leadership team and board members are here. What if you could have two things, what would they be? And he I think he wasn't prepared for the question to say that in front of the entire company. And he said, we should recognize the entry level people here, of our hourly wage, because they're all making kind of the minimum. If we could give even everyone $1 more, $2 more, it would change their life.
Yeah.
And his second thing was, ask me before you make a decision. This was just a few weeks ago, and I was like, there you have it. Like you gave the answers to the test.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but if someone says that to you, to the entire leadership team, do something about it and say, you know what, you're right. We didn't ask before we made this decision. And what happens when you do that? They become unstoppable. They're highly committed then to the business.
Right. Right. Yeah. Again, this is like the power of conversation that we sometimes take for granted in retail.
Agreed.
And Ron, to conclude like this beautiful conversation, what would you say for all those people, maybe young people who are willing to join the retail industry, or those who are willing to shift to the retail industry? What are your advices to them, or what are the things that you would tell them that maybe could reassure their choices?
I'd say number one, choose a company. Be intentional about choosing a company to work for that has training and development plans at every level. And those companies exist, and they, from the highest end of luxury to contemporary to entry to from pet businesses, clothing businesses, technology businesses, grocery. There are really great versions of every part of the thousands of retail businesses that exist. So choose one to work for that offers those development plans, because right away you're going to say, this is the role I want. Here's the development plans. Here's how the training that I will receive, because that's what I want to do. And so choose wisely about the companies you work for, and secondly, show up with pride every day, because if you do that, you will be recognized as someone that is really committed to the business and wants to do well every day. And everyone appreciates members of their team who show up every day with pride to do a great job. Those people win.
Yeah.
And if you do that, success is limitless. You can be whoever you want to be. And that's the other part about our industry that I love, is it's open to everyone. This is not an industry that says you have to have a certain education, you have to look a certain way, you have to, identify yourself as a certain person. Everyone is welcome. This is a very inclusive industry, but choose wisely.
Yeah.
Again, I can't say that about every brand. Choose brands that are inclusive, welcoming, engaging, that offer training programs, and you can have a very successful career.
Right. Thank you so much, Ron. I mean, before doing the live, I was looking back like a couple of decades ago and looking a bit older today about my first steps,
Oh.
in the retail industry, and how we can grow with it. I personally got out of the direct touch and went into the more of the buying and merchandising, and then to the science part, and then to the education part of retail. But still, every day when I walk into the store, I'm in love. I'm in love with anything and everything about retail, whether I'm getting my meat from the butcher or my cheese or going into a mall or a supermarket. It's beautiful to just see people who work there and who just are proud, as you say, and who just make you feel happy that you're and well received when doing all of your either shopping, either just looking around and window shopping. And I hope everyone could just listen to these beautiful tips and advices that you have given, because it's a good thing to choose brands who are willing to give us back, educate us, and make better retailers out of us. And I really thank you so much, Ron, for your time.
Thank you, Galia. It was so beautiful. Thank you. Nice. What a nice way to start my morning.
Yay! I'm glad, and I'm glad that you that you get to really share with us all of these experiences. I'm going to be directly uploading this chat on IGTV and later on YouTube for those who joined us a little bit later, and for all those who don't know or still didn't, they can get in touch with you, I think, through LinkedIn and Instagram, and they could get the book like everywhere on Amazon and
everywhere, and kind of Barnes and Noble, Target, all of it. To retail, if you go to retailpride.com too, that's where I also have the link to Amazon, as well as blogs that I write, which I'm a bit behind right now, but we'll get back on it. Other live events and things. I post everything on retailpride.com. So
perfect. Thank you so much, Ron, and I wish you a great morning, and stay in touch.
You got it. Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye. Ciao.